light itself is a form of intelligence. And someone maybe doesn't know that, but it's a fact. Light itself is a form of intelligence at all levels because it organizes and it acts upon and changes what it touches according to its nature. Light is a form of intelligence. That light, the reason that it is not active in us, has to do with what we give our attention to in the moment.
Hello, I'm Dr. Ellen Dickstein, and I'm here with best-selling inner life author Guy Finley. Today we're going to talk about principles of invisible justice. Guy, when we hear principles of invisible justice, I think the mind usually goes to the scripture, "As ye sow, so shall ye reap." And I'm sure we'll be discussing that in some detail. But in order to understand that at a deeper level, I think we first have to look at what you call the invisible eternals. So could you start off by explaining what the invisible eternals are?
When I talk about the invisible eternals, I'm referring to the fact that we live in a universe that by and large is 99% invisible, 1% visible. And that the very foundation of things in and of themselves are predicated in principles. And that these principles are the true ground. And what gives rise to these principles is the life force beneath the ground from which everything that we see, everything that we partake in, comes. And the man or woman who, Ellen, begins to really want to be a free human being eventually is led to these invisible eternals, which is fantastic because they're not a belief system. And everyone who eventually longs to be free, and we'll talk about that in a minute, the idea of what free is, because you can't talk about these things without talking about freedom. Mm-hmm. We find it.
We prove them to ourselves.
Yeah. We don't need someone to say, there it is, or that's what it is, or you should be like this kind of person, or wear an invisible eternal button on your shirt. I'm protected by the invisible eternals. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a dynamic relationship with life that we are, to one degree or another, we're either attracted to it or we're led to it. And we're led to it by a lot of the dissatisfaction that comes to us, the lot of that moment in which we realize that we're not free, and that which we had set our hopes upon, things seen that would give us that freedom, turned out to be that which actually took our freedom away. Mm-hmm. So the idea of an unconditional freedom is rooted in the relationship that an individual can discover within himself, within herself, of these invisible eternals, of these principles of love, of kindness, of poetry, of beauty, that are all the time working, but that we're not a part of because our minds, the way they presently are occupied, pursue powers instead of wanting relationship with principles.
Mm-hmm. And the powers that we pursue enslave us, so we lose our freedom.
Well, let's be careful, because that's a fact, but I want people to understand it. The reason that powers that we pursue enslave us is because the nature that believes it needs power mm-hmm. is itself powerless. Mm-hmm. So the person who believes that I have to have the power of controlling people's behavior, I have to have the power of seeing that life goes the way I want it to go at all times, meets those moments of life from a part of themselves that is actually afraid that if they don't have that power or control, they'll lose something. So what's really in control of such an individual is not the power or the people he believes he possesses, but rather that divided nature, that negative state of fear or insecurity that produces the whole idea of finding powers outside of myself to begin with. There are no powers outside of ourselves. There are no powers outside of what lives in us. We are creations of, and you choose the word you wish, we're God's creation. We are manifestations of light, just like Whitman talks about the leaves of grass. You know, everything is made from that beautiful light, one way or the other. And all that is lives in us. So if we have problems with people, it isn't because they have powers we don't, but because we have succumbed to the pursuit inside of ourselves of powers because we're in relationship with fear or worry or doubt or some negative quality.
But when we, through our awareness, come under these invisible eternals, then we're free of these dependencies.
Yeah, and yes. But boy, I want to, more and more I want to find ways to be simpler and simpler and simpler. Because, invisible eternals, and I wrote, it's my writing, those are my ideas, but I want to throw them away. Not the principle behind it, but I want to simplify the understanding of it. If suddenly this sound stage that we're on here at the foundation, if suddenly we turned all the lights on, can darkness come into this room?
No.
I mean, is there a little, like a little black ball of darkness that can, wander in when the room's lit up? Can it?
No,
it can't. It can't. Why?
Because the light is greater than the darkness.
Because the light is greater than the darkness.